On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where Wisp comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. Wisp. That's hellowisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
Having had the experience of loving someone that was struggling with these addictions, I've tried to run from grief, I've tried to work grief away, and I've tried to love grief away. And it will sneak up on you.
Everybody loved that documentary. It was this amazing slice of life.
No, and that was my dream. My dream was that like people would watch it and they would somehow connect to their own lives.
The way that you've told this story, this family, Angel, Nick, they're so lucky to have someone like you be able to share their story like this, and for Aaron as well. And I cried for 20 minutes after having finished part 2.
I ended up meeting Angel Carter while I was making the documentary on Seth. I mean, one of the things that blew my mind when she said it. I could not believe it.
Oldish. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Here we are. Another episode of Oldish. I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm so happy to be here.
I want to go through your list of things really fast before I introduce you to, we have a really special guest.
Thank you.
Dear, lifelong friend of mine. She's an actress. She's a writer. She's a producer. She's a director. And she is, I would assume, everyone's spirit animal. Like, I think I think it's safe to say
Fair.
Everyone,
Fair.
if you spend 5 minutes in a room with you, you light up a room like no one else I've ever known in my life. So thank you so much for being here, Soleil Moon Fry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and
I want to clap for you.
You're gonna
That was very
I wanted to clap too.
You're gonna immediately bring me to tears because
that's what we do here.
I
That's welcome
love
to
you
Oldish.
so much, and it's so amazing to look at this being in front of me, and I see us at 11 years old, 15 years old, 18 years old, like to share that much life is just
let's go
phenomenal.
back to when we met, which I think was at
and that your exquisite, beautiful love here has to hear about it all of the time.
I can't wait
because
to hear it. I love
every
it.
time I see her, I'm like, and then this happened.
Right.
And then, by the way, did I tell you about this time? I'm like,
It's the best. I think it's amazing.
So it was your birthday party at, I feel it was at a hotel. I feel like it was
the Bellage
because
Hotel.
you had so many like friends and acquaintances at that point. It was literally one of the most packed events
I don't know what
ever.
happened. I don't know how they
I
pulled
remember
it
Johnny
off.
Depp was there.
Johnny Depp was there.
And he was doing 21 Jump Street. At that point.
I mean,
he hadn't even crossed over to movies.
But he was like the hottest thing ever.
He was the biggest
and
thing
he
on
was
the
my
planet.
birthday present, which I mean,
What a present.
Wait,
Not
let's
a bad
just.
thing.
Sorry, it sounds totally inappropriate.
that mean?
Well, in the sense that I was so crazy about him, and I had the biggest crush on him, and I also had a crush on C. Thomas Howell, and they both showed up at my birthday, which was just amazing, and I was in complete just girly heaven. You know, it was like a dream come true.
So
I remember everything about it.
I remember Bubbles the chimp was there. Michael Jackson's chimp Bubbles was there in overalls and the whole thing. Michael was not there. So
This
Bubbles
is just
was
a birthday
representing
party.
him.
It was my 12th
It was your 12th birthday.
Your
party.
12th
But it was like that.
birthday?
It was like that peak moment, right? Because it was just. I mean,
Soleil was-
and now I have to spend the rest of my
Soleil-
life living up to that
Living up to
12th
Bubbles
birthday
being at your birthday party. Yeah, totally right.
That and my sweet
how do you
16.
top that? That
my
bar
sweet
is so
16
high.
kind of topped it, but yeah.
Yeah, Bubbles was there, and we ended up meeting, and this was at the height of Punky Brewster. Like, Punky Brewster was massive at that point. I remember you did an episode in Washington at the White House. Nancy Reagan was in. I remember you walking down the street with the man who played your dad. I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
You were on
George
his
James.
shoulders.
Yeah.
And there were like 1,500 people walking behind you. Like I remember those visuals because it was what you were doing was massive. It was larger than life at that point.
It was
for
really
those-
fun to be a part of it.
I'm sure for those not familiar with Punky Brewster, I mean,
Is
this was
anyone
my
not familiar with
Yeah,
Punky
totally.
Brewster?
Yeah.
For those who aren't,
I don't
how
know
would
who
you
those are.
describe the show Punky Brewster?
Oh,
Or your character.
Punky is the superhero within me. You know, she was so unique and had gone through so much pain in her life. You know, she was abandoned by her mother and her father, and there she was with this, you know, puppy dog and literally this older man, Henry. I mean, I know it sounds crazy now, like that this would actually fly, but this older man took her in, and
Adopted her
together
and,
they created their own family and extended family, and it's wild because there were so many elements that were so heartbreaking and that were so just so telling of the times, and yet they did it with healing through comedy. So it was so rare because we were dealing with really heavy, you know, subject matter. And
The show was a sitcom, wasn't it?
It was a comedy, but there was times where, I mean, you know, you're just breaking down in tears, and you know, and the foster system, and really finding the home that you create together, and that she was so unafraid to be uniquely who she was with her different colored shoes and her bandanas.
The
And
bandana.
I mean, just,
Were
it
you
was
aware
amazing.
of the power of that show when you were that age doing it? Or were you just kind of young and
No, I was, it was so incredible because people would share their stories of coming from, you know, unorthodox homes and non-traditional families and adopted families and foster families. And, you know, we dealt with such real topics, and so many of the topics that we were dealing with were things that we were going through in our own lives. I wanted to be an astronaut my entire life. And when the Challenger happened, I mean, I along with the world was so devastated, and so they did an episode that dealt with it, you know. And so we were constantly dealing with things that we were going through in our personal lives. So I didn't really know where Punky ended and I began, you know. And my mom always encouraged in us to really make a difference, to be aware of the world that we lived in. My parents were political activists, so there was a great deal of understanding and being able to affect, you know, people, and wanting to be able to touch people, and wanting to be able to do the things that I know you were able to do as well, where you would go and work with Make-A-Wish and go visit children that were in hospitals. I mean, it was incredible, and we were always figuring out ways to get
I wasn't
back.
nearly as self-aware as you were though at that age. I mean, for as long as I've known you, you have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever spent time with, and you've always been that way. So I feel like we talk about kids are born, they come out of the womb who they are. It's our job as parents, I think, to morally raise them, but they are who you are. And who you are, it seems from the very beginning, is you are meant to come here and affect change and influence people, and influence with love and affection and kindness. And you're a really, really amazing human being.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. I had an experience recently, which was so incredible. I met this amazing shaman, and you know, I mean, I've been spending time over the last few years going to the jungle and these different incredible experiences, really in this self-seeking journey. I think a lot of it came through the experience of making Kid 90, and when I unlocked Pandora's box, and so much joy that came through it, but also so much pain, and how do you deal with that? So, you know, meditating and really looking within. And this person said the other day, which was really exquisite, he said, you lead with a broken heart. And I was like, oh. And he said,
Ooh,
I'll start
that's really
crying talking about it.
powerful. Yeah.
He said, you walk through life with a broken heart. And he was like, so that's going to be a really sensitive journey for you,
Yes.
but it's meant for you, because I think in those broken parts is how the light comes in, right? So it
where the
allows us to
change
create
comes,
safe
yeah.
spaces to
It's
share, you know,
It's
and
the wounded healer path.
right,
right?
right.
Do you know when your heart broke? Have you discovered that moment?
You know, I think it's been that I've always had this, you know, just from the time I was little, like I love people. I love learning about people. I love, you know, taking it all in. And I'm also like a really sensitive soul. And so at times I've built up walls, and then it's like break them down, build up walls, break them down. But I think in my own journey of wanting to discover more about myself and live with more empathy, and I think as a documentary filmmaker, it's so important to create a safe space. So you have to really strip away your judgment. Like, I think it's one of the only ways that you can create a safe space to tell stories that are really meaningful and important, to have to kind of take yourself out of it to allow people to share. So yeah, and it's interesting. It's been ongoing. It's like now I kind of feel my way through things. You know, you could be sitting with someone and you go, wow, like they're saying all the right things and they're saying such, but it just doesn't, you start leading with your intuition, you know, like when something doesn't feel right and you're like, why does this feel like, oh, so I think it's like, it's part of that journey. I suppose it's ongoing.
We were talking the other day about you doing documentaries, and like I genuinely feel like you have found the medium that serves you the best.
Your
And
niche.
You're amazing at it, and I think the people that succeed in things are the ones that are just, they're built for them. And you, the Kid 90 was such an amazing start. The one before that you did with your dad was fantastic. I remember seeing bits of that years ago. And you were just sort of kind of fumbling through, and it was, and you were so involved in that one. I know that one was really hard for you, because it was like
I tend to do really personal, emotional.
Bleeding, right?
Definitely don't shy away from really intense stories. But it's so fascinating because it comes to also, and I'm sure in your field, right? You're in this all the time, which is, it's wild because it's like there was this path in front of me and purpose, right? And I'm so thankful that I have my exquisite children, and life, you know, happens and all these things. And I dabbled in this and then went back and did this and acted, you know, and all these things. And it's like, I'm so fortunate that the path brought me back to like this incredible love of documentaries. And it's so interesting because I think so often we have that passion when we're younger, and then we go and life takes us on so many different paths. And so to rediscover that and be in that moment of, oh my God, I feel like there's this deeper purpose, and it's an instrument for something so much larger than me, you know, like let me be an instrument. You know?
What was the starting point of Kid 90? Like what even put you in the place?
Oh,
of going,
wow.
I've got something I want to
that's
make
a
and story
loaded
to tell.
question.
It's a super loaded question.
Yeah.
And what is it? So again, for those who haven't seen it.
So Kid 90, growing up, I had carried a video camera everywhere I went. I think, you know, that was like the teen journalist in me. So from the time I was 5 years old, I would get in a cab and I would ask the cab driver her entire life story, right? I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know about their love lives. I wanted to know about where they came. Like, I love people, you know, I'm just fascinated by people. And so then as a teenager, and I think a lot of it was almost that the camera was a protective device in a way to kind of shield me, because I had so many insecurities as a teenager. And so it was kind of this way to put something in front of me that somehow felt like it was protective. And then I documented all of us growing up and our lives. And then I locked it away because I was so protective over my friends. And then I turned 40, I guess, something like that. And all of a sudden I was like, who am I, like, separate from, you know, this incredible family and my children. I was married at the time, and I was like, but, you know, who am I separate from, you know, from my family? Like, I remember that, you know, I was an artist, you know, that loved, you know, documenting, and And I really also realized in that moment of turning 40 that some of my best friends were no longer with us. Like I had lost, like some of my closest friends were no longer here. And my memories of them were so joyful. So I started to go back and I had all these tapes in Tupperware, literally in Tupperware, and my diaries in Tupperware. And I had saved my voicemails and I had saved my diaries and I had saved my audio. I mean, people would be like, you are,
Insane.
I mean, I kind of keep a lot of things, but this really was incredible because essentially I had kept this chronological blueprint of our lives. And that's what led to the journey. Now, by the way, the documentary was it was supposed to be about everyone but me. It was about like the death of privacy, like essentially the last internet, like before the internet exploded. So like the last time before the internet, it totally became personal. It unfolded as it went. There's this saying that if we make the documentary that we set out to make, we weren't really listening, So that led to Kid 90, which, wow, what a journey. And then that led to me having to really self-examine my own life and existence.
I wanted to ask, two things. First, was there any footage that came up from that time that was just way too painful to share? And then also, what did you discover about yourself after having gone back through this? You say it brought up a lot of pain for you and then a lot of self-discovery. So what did it open up for you? What was Pandora's box?
It's such a great question. In the footage and in the diaries, there were things that had happened, situations which I had like blocked out, whether it was, hey, I don't really remember this thing, or I can't piece it together, but I feel like maybe I drank something and then felt like out of sorts, and then it was like I would watch the footage and but I had like blocked it out, and then I watched the footage and it would illustrate that, or I'd hear the audio or something somebody was saying and I was like, oh my God. And then there was so much joy, right? So there was all these happy moments. And then there was, friends who had ended their lives who were reaching out for help, but I couldn't see it at the time. So their audio recordings or them reaching out to express their love. There's one of my favorite moments was with one of my best friends, Jonathan Brandis, who, he was so full of love, so full of heart. And I would listen to his recordings. And when you had voicemail at the time, you would just kind of like, remember pound, you could like go to the next one. So somebody would be like, hey, and he was so full of life and so giddy and so playful. And so he would leave these long messages. We would leave these messages for like at least 10, 15 minutes. And then, you would just
try
pound through
like
it.
Wear out.
And
like,
exactly where he's like,
all
I'm
the
going to
time.
end your tape.
Right.
And in the audio of listening to him, one of the most intense moments of the journey was listening to it. And at about 15, 20 minutes, he's like, I love you. I've always loved you. So like basically he decides that at this point he can say everything that he wants to say. And he's expressing this just deep, beautiful love between us and the power of our relationship. But I had never heard it until all these years after his passing.
Wow.
And so moments like that where you're like, wow, there's so much going on in people's subtext that we just don't see, we don't hear, we don't know. So that changed my life so much. And then I think our brains, the way that our neural pathways work is that then sometimes other things come up. So all of a sudden I started having memories from earlier childhood of things. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So it started to unlock other memories that led to other memories. It was like a tunnel of memories. And in that, I really had to like go do some deep self-reflection. And the best way that I could understand healing was through meditating and connecting to source larger than me, which then led to our spiritual awakening that Brian was there for me for, which is a whole other
That's a whole nother
podcast.
Day of podcasting.
Oh my goodness!
Okay, got it.
I don't wanna
But
hear
this
that.
one,
I was locked in.
Well,
I'm ready for it.
This one was really so. Like I was doing a lot of breath work, and I wasn't working with someone, in the physical sense. Like a lot of people go to yoga and work with somebody or meditating, and I was, I was lying in a yurt during quarantine for hours and hours, you know.
Doing
and,
like holotropic breath work or
yes, exactly. And all of a sudden I had a Kundalini awakening, and let me tell you, that was amazing. And I was definitely on another planet, many of them.
She was in a whole
Many
other
of
place.
them.
Yeah.
You were there?
I was in.
So I'm not sharing a lot other than she was at her house in Venice, and she was like, I need to get out of here. I need
I had
get away. Like I need relief from this.
Let's see how much Brian should just keep it.
Oh no!
Keep
so
it
I'll
to
keep
the.
it, yeah. So I went. So I went. I picked her up and went back to because I was living in Malibu at the time. So
took
we
care
came
of
back
me.
to the house, and then I took like for 2 days, just kind of took care of her and
Yeah.
helped her kind of
Like
Real
brought her
one.
soup or like ground
I
her?
may
Kind of everything.
have dug into the honey jar.
Yeah, she was in a place where she was wanting honey. And so I literally I remember there was one
I know
point
it
where I had a
sounds so. I
brand
mean,
new
I
thing
have
of
no
honey.
idea how we ended up. By the way, someday this is going to make an amazing documentary. It is incredible.
It's an
yeah.
incredible story. So I had
You've heard of
brand new thing of
5D
honey.
and okay. Okay, just
And
so
she
we're
was
all
just drinking
Drinking the honey.
from it. Yeah. So I was like, okay,
It was
I guess I'm
delicious,
gonna have
by
to
the
go
way.
buy a new thing of honey. You know, it's kind
So
of
like
unsanitary.
you entered the 5D and you're like,
unsanitary,
I'm just
you know
gonna
what
drink
you know what
liquid
happened.
through
Yeah,
honey.
you know what
Like,
happened. It was also like a time where, again, I think I was uncovering so much that was so deep and profound that I had kept within, and then I realized, I mean, there were so many things. My relationship was going through its transformation, my kids, and and so I was really
This was during COVID. Like
but
there was a lot.
I loved, someone said something so beautiful to me at the time, which they said, one of the ways the difference between a breakthrough, right? Like an awakening and a breakdown is that a breakthrough is all light. So for me, it was like everything was beautiful. Like it was this feeling of unconditional love that is beyond explanation. It was like this death ego kind of thing where all of a sudden it was just like I wanted to just do everything I could to make the world a better place, Like I was just like, oh, like it was like literally like I felt connected to just something that was so much bigger than me, and it was just the most amazing experience ever.
So
I believe
when
they
you
call it a
reached out to
spiritual
me-
emergence.
When you reached out to me
is
for
the
Kid
word
90,
for it.
I want to go back to that. I want to get back into the documentary stuff because I think this story is, again, it's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
When you first reached out to me to sit down and talk on camera for Kid 90, I genuinely did not understand or comprehend the scope of what it is you were doing. So you were like,
Nor did I,
Yeah,
by
you
the
were
way.
like-
I had no idea.
you were
what-
like, hey, remember like when I used to film everything when we were younger? I was like, of course. She's like, I found it all. So I want to come by. I think I'm going to make a documentary. I want to come by and I want to talk about all of it. I was like, okay, cool. Cut to, she showed, knock at the door. It's like 15 people in this crew. She has like a photographer. It was a whole thing. She had DPs and they were lighting it.
production.
It was a whole production. And we sat down and we did it. And even then,
By the
it
way,
was-
then I went on to make a documentary with my iPhone. So by the way,
was
so
still-
it's like
yeah, when we sat down and talked, it was still like a year and a half before
Yeah.
Kid 90 had come out.
Yeah.
So I kind of did that. And then it was like, hey, great, I'm curious to see if this ever comes, if anything is ever done with this. Cut to, she's like, hey, so every time I talk to her, she's like, oh, I've been in editing and doing it. And I was like, oh, what's taking so long? Like, what are you doing?
because I
over
like
there?
to sit in and
I
edit
just didn't-
24/7 a day.
But I just didn't understand
the.
the scale of what it is she was doing. And then I remember when you were like, hey, so the documentary's done. I really want you to see it. And you sent me kind of an advanced screening of it to watch. And I was floored. I was like, oh my God, this is your approach to storytelling in that was just beyond anything I had ever expected. And everybody else that watched it, that was sort of the general consensus, was everybody loved that documentary because it was this amazing slice of life this crazy little life that we lived.
Yeah.
This group of us, there were, I always tell people there were like 20 young actors at that point.
No, and
Like,
that
it
was my
wasn't a big
dream. My
thing.
dream was that like people would watch it and they would somehow connect to their own lives. And I loved what you said. You were so kind when it came out in your beautiful words, like, and heart. Like it was such a dream that people would watch it and then they would go home and reach out to their friends or their first love or their best friend from high school. And that for me was the dream of all dreams. I was like, I get to be a conduit, in a way, because we all grew up together. But like, I want that person who lives, in the Midwest to be able to then feel connected to it, to reach out to their friends. And it was so exquisite to see people's response and that was happening and the way that they would respond. It was the greatest joy and so fulfilling to hear the way that it connected to them and that it was told through people that we love, because we all grew up with Brian or Leo or like any of these like amazing people, and that there was so much support from the friends that were in it to just allow me
there was
the
there was a
space.
lot of pain in that documentary though,
Yeah.
too. I
Yeah.
mean, there were a lot of things that people from the outside just would have no idea. Like when Stephen Dorff was on and he was talking about, his brother and you were talking about Jonathan, you were playing the voicemails and the things, and you had that section about the people that we had lost that were within our inner circle. What do you think it is that separates the people that made it through that time period compared to the people that didn't?
I think it's such a great question, and I think about it on a constant basis. And I think there's those of us that had families that that perhaps we could lean into in different ways, where there was a different continuity. There are those that I know have beautiful families that loved and supported them. And I think there's the mental health component. I think when you compile mental health with addiction, that can be another layer. So I think that there was probably so much going on for some people behind closed doors that we don't know about. So I think when you layer in any of those factors, they can become incredibly isolating. And so I don't think it's one thing for each person.
Right.
I think there was so much going on in our industry that was swept under the rug that, and by the way, families that probably thought their kids were in safe situations or perhaps they weren't.
Because it was all new at that point.
It wasn't spoken about. It wasn't, known. I think then there's the component of families I know that loved their kids and gave them beautiful home lives and did their absolute best, but were dealing with a mental health crisis that perhaps they didn't understand because, again, how often do we talk about mental health, in our households? And back then, it was,
discussed.
like the stigma attached to discussing it.
It wasn't discussed
It wasn't.
at all.
It wasn't
Nobody-
discussed
nobody was
openly,
talking
right?
about mental health that period.
And then addiction, and that's one of the things that's so important to me in this day, in this moment in time, and especially with this, recent experience of making the latest doc, is that we have to normalize these conversations.
Absolutely.
We have to look at it. At least for me, I look at it like a disease, right? And when somebody is struggling with a disease, they can go to their family and their family takes them to the doctor. When someone is struggling with addiction, it's like, okay, go get better and let me know, when you're all better. A lot of the time. I'm not saying all of the time, but a lot of the time that's what you're faced with. So it's like we are facing this enormous crisis globally around mental health and addiction. And until we start to have these conversations and take away the stigma and allow ourselves to talk openly about these things, it's going to continue. So I think that within that generation, and even today, it hasn't been spoken about enough. And I hope that we can have these conversations. But I think it's a compilation of those elements.
Do either of you, in knowing that you were a part of this time and so many didn't make it, Do you ever feel survivor's guilt a little bit when you look back at that and knowing that you were around these people? Does it ever bring up things for you where you go, God, how did I make it? Or I wish I could have done more?
It's for me, when I made Kid 90, and this is, I know these are heavy topics. You know, when I made Kid 90, I was like, I just didn't see it. And I didn't hear it. And from now on, I'm going to see it and I'm going to hear it. And then I reconnected with one of my childhood friends. And we set out to make a documentary. And we fell in love. And I was like, I can see it. I can hear it. And I think in some way, I thought, okay, I can save this one. And in some, really, it's one of my first times talking about this openly. But I think in a way, I felt like if I could save him, then not only would I be saving him, I would save my dad who is dealing with Alzheimer's. I'd be able to save all of my friends that had passed away.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I wasn't able to save him either. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Was this Seth?
Yeah.
Shifty from Crazy Town?
Yes. So I think that in a way, you know, you have that like wanting to help people and wanting to save others and really like within myself going, I've got to do everything I can to also be here for my children and all of that. And that's that balance. So there isn't a moment or a day that somewhere within my heart, you know, I carry all of these people with me. But I think that's that I have to look at that as a way to have these conversations, because to grieve so deeply must mean that we also love so deeply, you know? And I've had to like realize, oh, there's nothing that I could have done to, you know, ultimately stop. You know what I mean?
Is that one of the things that drives you with these documentaries?
I think 1,000%, right? Is like to at least provide a place, you know, because when I think about Seth, you know, I mean, it's crazy because when we came together, he was sober, you know, like we'd grown up together like forever. So there was that inner, you know, connection of childhood and friendship, and he was so great with the kids. And it's like, I'm a big believer in faith, and I believe that we have these soul agreements, and I believe we came together for something that was so important. And I think that my experience with him, like the fact that, you know, we were able to experience such deep, beautiful love, and that he was able to have that sense of family before he moved on, is incredible. And then when I think about it, I ended up meeting Angel Carter while I was making, you know, the documentary on Seth. During the course of this experience, I think she had a great deal of trust in me, and having had the experience of loving someone that was struggling with these addictions, I think there was an element of trust there. And that then led into this journey with Angel, and really being able to create a safe space because I understood, you know?
Right.
And then ultimately, as we made the Carters, she lost her third sibling. Seth passed away. You know, those kinds of experiences bond you, you know, in such a deep way. And I think one of the biggest things I realized is we can try to run from grief. I've tried to run from grief. I've tried to work grief away. And I've tried to love grief
It waits
away.
for you.
And it will sneak up on you.
It does.
It sneaks up on you. It sneaks up on you, and you're like, oh, where did this come from? I remember I was like, oh, wait, I was over here. And it sneaks up on you. And until you can, you know, sit with it and really feel your way through it.
Before, that grief waits for you. It does, like, until you deal with it, it just sits and it waits, and it doesn't care how long it takes.
Yeah. So I think for me, thank the divine that I've had these places to put it, because anyone could speak to me about addiction, about a family member, a child, a brother, a sister, a loved one, and I will be able to listen with an open, broken heart, you know,
Yeah.
without any judgment.
Yeah.
Let's get into the chorus
know?
a little bit because that's out.
It's phenomenal.
Sorry.
It's not at
so
all.
good.
It's sorry, we're so excited to talk about it, and also still dealing with the heartbreak of watching it. You, in the way that you've told this story, this family, Angel, Nick, they're so lucky to have someone like you be able to share their story like this, and for Aaron as well. And I cried for 20 minutes after having finished part 2.
Oh, yeah, it's
if anyone
just
hasn't seen it yet,
heartbreaking.
it is the most tragically beautiful must-see documentary I think I've seen in a very long time. And thank you so much for sharing. As someone that knows Nick Carter, I know I'll get emotional saying it. Thank you for sharing their story because it so needed to be heard. And I was texting with Nick and he said how healing it had been to have this finally be out there and to even be in the creation of it. And you hold such beautiful space for them in telling this story. And even hearing your voice come up, we're like, that's Soleil.
Yeah,
The way
we
that
just
you-
hear your voice every once in a while, kind of peppered in. I was like, oh my God, that's
You have a gift, and you have a healing tone, and you create an openness and a safe space just in who you are and through your experiences. But I would love to know, because it couldn't have been easy to put this together, even though it's something that I think you were meant to do on this earth, is share these stories. What are some of the difficulties that you had in dealing with an incredibly public story, with incredibly sensitive information and subjects, and people that are still very much healing from their trauma?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's been a really emotional journey. For me, the most important thing was at the core to share, I believe, one of the most universal stories that is happening in our world, which is the struggling of mental health and addiction. To me, that is universal. It touches everyone's lives. And to be able to share it through this deeply moving story of Angel and her courage and what she has gone through and what her family has gone through, it was so important to me. I met Angel, the incredible team at Candle, Stephen and James. I met her through them. When I first met, I was like, oh, this is like really intense. I met her, I fell in love with her. And she was so vulnerable and so open with me and just exquisite. And we went on this journey together. And really, for me, the most important thing was holding on to the integrity of really making this documentary that was going to help create these conversations, and the trust in them giving me their family archives and allowing me to explore their family archives, so much of which they had never seen before.
Wow.
So they had never seen these moments between the family. And my job as a documentarian that I hold so close to my heart is to literally listen to every single moment. You know, that was the thing with Kid 90. Like, I had never really listened to all those tapes. So with this, it's like listening to everything. Sometimes, you know, with my ear, like so close to it that like, is there something being said when you pump up the volume? And some of the most intense, darkest moments that we witness in this documentary are things that if you're just watching it, you may not realize what's being said. But when you really listen, that's the gift of like having to really listen and really hear. Yeah, like to be able to hear what was really going on. You go, oh my God. But again, how many families are struggling? You know, this happened to be on camera, but how many millions of people are going through this? And then when you see Aaron and just this beautiful spirit and what happens and this goes to again this universal story, which is like I've been thinking a lot about like bleeding hearts, right? And what is that point when someone like snaps once, snaps twice, snaps again? You're dealing with online bullying. You're dealing with being not fitting in to your community, to your school, you're feeling alienated, you compile that with addiction. What's the breaking point that happens that we see globally in our world of someone that's a deeply sensitive person that ultimately, can fall apart?
Yeah.
And I think that also is a really important conversation to have. And when I'm watching Aaron in these videos and his love and his heart, and then you see that, you go, oh my God, like something about this. I feel like I'm watching so many people in the world. So it was so difficult, painful. I had moments where watching the footage, I can't tell you how many times I was purging like during the process. I would be on a network call and having, been watching the footage, and they gave me so much space, I have to say. The incredible team, James, Steven, Susan Zarinsky, Terry, the team at Candle and Paramount, to be on the phone, on Zooms with a filmmaker where I would be witnessing things and I would be like, you guys, this is really the first time I've like spoken about it, but like, I'd be like, excuse me, I have to run to the bathroom and I'll be right back. And they just supported me, and so I don't think people always realize, like, yes, as a documentarian, your job is like providing the safe space, but I love, this family having the courage, to share their story, and really wanted to provide healing for them. So it was, and it unfolded, it was always Angel's story. It started with Angel, and wanting to do justice to her being able to speak her truth.
Yeah. I would imagine too that just like Kid 90, watching all of these videos back and reading journal entries that you had and getting so intimate with the content that you lived, but now you're a different person.
Right.
And now coming from the place that you're coming from, telling people stories and taking all of that in and then figuring out what to then disseminate out and what makes it. There's so much that you take in. And a third theme that I saw in there when I was watching it was Aaron's sensitivity, right? I mean, all of them, actually, everyone in the family sensitivity.
Yeah.
Nick's relationship with Aaron, their beautiful
Yeah.
brotherhood. And Aaron, there was this one moment where it just hit me and it brought tears to my eyes because I thought that was me. These are my daughters. Everyone is a teen. Everyone is a kid. And everyone, to some degree, could have that childhood joy and innocence. And then to see where that winds up and the heartbreak of that. And I thought, oh my gosh, that could be anyone. And thinking of the friends that you have had that are not here anymore and didn't make it. And
Absolutely.
to be able to tell this story where people can take from that how to treat people, what to look out for. I mean, what would you say in terms of what to see? Because you have all these YouTubers now and these kids that are just, I want to be famous. I want to be famous.
No, totally. You touched on so many amazing things. And that, first of all, the archive led so much of this journey. And as the trust built, Angel would send me messages, text messages, like the trust built, and it was like all of a sudden more and more and more was coming in. The idea that we could hear Aaron from the other side, that we had these recordings where it's like people make such assumptions around families or what we think we know, right? And to be able to hear Aaron from the other side, in his moments, to be able to hear from him directly, for me, I wanted so much to really carry on their memory in a beautiful way, those that had been lost, and that were no longer here. and also to just look at the complexities, you know. And I think, you know, when we look at our industry and growing up and the pressures, right? I mean, it brought up a lot for me, even just that I didn't even think, you know, I would face, you know, of just, you know, that sense of wanting to best support your family. Even if your family doesn't put that pressure on you, I always like wanted to make sure that everybody was happy and everyone's taken care of. I don't know, Brian, if you had the same feeling, but it's like, you just want to make sure, like if you're a people pleaser, right? And you have a huge heart and you want everybody to be happy and you want everybody to feel connected, and you compile that. And watching the videos, I would watch these videos and Aaron would be rehearsing for hours upon hours upon hours. And he had such a beautiful spirit and there's that innocence. And you would watch Nick rehearsing for hours and hours and hours. And watching that was so intense because you go, wow, like this is so fascinating, because there's part of you that goes, okay, well, you know, there's moments where they're really enjoying it, right? And then you think of all of the musical icons that we've looked up to, right? And we can go over the list that are no longer here, or athletes, and you go, to what point, you know, to what point do we push our heroes, you know, or the people that we look up to? You know, I can look at some of my favorite musicians of all time and go, wow, like to what lengths were they either pushed or did they push themselves?
Right. There were moments where he said, I just want to go home. And they said, well, they would incentivize.
Right.
We'll get
I'll buy you a
diamond
diamond necklace.
We'll get
We'll
you
buy
a boat.
Yeah.
And then he would just keep going. That broke my heart.
It's,
That
you know,
was really
it's
sad.
heartbreaking.
The moment that broke my heart
I know
was
which one you're going to talk about.
they were all in. Nick went to visit him. He was on stage. They were all dressed in white, and Aaron is mid-performance. He's there and he's doing his thing. But the minute he saw his brother, he was a little boy. Oh, see? He breaks down in tears and buries his face in his chest because that's all he wants. And you could see that this little boy, that's all he wanted, was to be loved and be around his family. He idolized his big brother. So he ended up mirroring him to do what he was doing, because I think it made him feel closer to him, even when Nick was a world away with all the turmoil that was happening in their home. But it ended up being the thing that kept them apart from each other, because the greedy parents, I'm sorry, were just pushing them to work and work and work. And all he wanted was to be a little brother with his family and have that security and be loved. And he wasn't allowed it.
And you see those moments. I love that you recognize that, because every time I see that moment too, it starts in my heart. I just,
we were talking about it in the car and started tearing up.
And the thing is, people haven't seen these moments. So you think of the rivalry, right? But you look at this early footage and you're like, oh my God, the love is so clear between them. The love that, you know, and so this idea that people really feel like they know the narrative because so many people have told so many different narratives, the idea that now Angel gets to tell it through her perspective, and that footage has never, so much of that footage has never been seen before, right? So it was all these personal archives. It was people that were filming moments like behind the scenes that had never been seen, where including Angel and Nick had never seen so much of this footage. And I, you know, that moment on the boat when you see, you know, their interaction and just how much love was there. And again, this concept that I'm always fascinated by, which is nature versus nurture, right? And also, you know, that I have to say, this makes me so emotional, the amount that Angel has also always wanted to protect her family, including her parents, is such a testament to her, you know, because I think we realize that, you know, that our parents don't always have the tools to navigate the waters as well, you know, and so that's what really, like, that's so gut-wrenching to me as well, which is, you know, that there was love, and you see the love in their household when you see the mother with the baby, and you see, you know, the way that there are beautiful moments, and then there's these tragic, devastating moments, right? But when you compile again the recipe of mental health, addiction, money, fame, stardom, greed, and all of those elements, including people outside of the family. I mean, one of the things that blew my mind when she said it, I could not believe it. The idea that Lou Pearlman was the mediator in the divorce
That got me
is
right.
By the way,
What
there
do
are
you
so
mean?
many things that we could go into that would be like so many other documentaries, but that alone
Doesn't even make sense.
No, it doesn't even make sense.
It says so much.
Your ability to really show the audience the amount of love, though, that those kids had for
The
each
humanity.
other. Like I remember the point when their reality show, The Carters, was on, and I remember watching it and not really knowing much about the family.
It just seemed like chaos.
Right.
Right?
So
chaos. Utter
then
chaos.
to watch this and realize like, oh, the concept that Nick had of like getting everybody away from the parents and all the kids back into a house and kind of and rehabilitating them that way was just
I think you see it from a different perspective, right?
Yes.
It's not that they were,
You can't
they're
help
trying to
but
make
see
money
it.
and make a
Yeah.
TV show. No, they were broke because their parents took all their money, and he was trying to bring everyone back together now
because he
without
was the
them.
big brother.
Big brother,
and,
with the
like,
aid of, yes, a TV show and money, but just trying to bring them back together and to be a father figure in some way.
There's a moment where they're on the couch, and I think it says it all, because with reality shows, and I'm sure, I would hope that a lot of people know that, they make it big. And,
Right, right.
I was watching it
Right.
and I was like, I had never seen it. And I was like, I think I'm happy that I had never seen it until
Yeah.
making this documentary, and I still haven't, but there's a moment that to me, and these are the nuances that I love to dig into, is there's a moment on the couch and you just see Aaron sprawled over Nick on the couch. And it's those moments where you go, you can't fake
Right.
that kind of love.
That was
You
genuine.
you can't pretend those kinds of moments, or the moment when they're being interviewed about it and he's got his arm, over his big brother. And so were there complexities? Of course, but just those kinds of moments that you watch and I go, wow, I really hope that people can watch this documentary, have meaningful conversations in their own homes about what we're talking about, and that it connects to them in some way. I know there's parts of it that I watch and I connect to my own life. It's created conversations with my kids. We have way more open dialogues than we did before making this documentary about everything, because I do feel so strongly that I don't want to push stuff under the rug and create, this sense of catharsis and also memory, to keep this family's memory, alive and their exquisite sisters.
And that, what you've given them, I think, because Aaron doesn't deserve to be remembered in the way that he was near the end of his life. His mental illness and his addiction really took a hold of him, and it's really not fair to remember this beautiful boy at his worst. But to see this story and to see how he got to that makes him a human being again, and truly makes you see the beautiful boy again, and how hard it was for this family and what they've been through, and to, I think, give the utmost respect to them and love. So I think you told it beautifully. I think you gave him an opportunity to have his real story shared, and Angel's true story shared, and Nick's. And I think there's something about that is such a gift. And I believe that honestly only you could have given that to them. Truly. Sorry.
I was just going to add to what you were saying, Sharna, is something that I felt that you also did really beautifully is show the humanness of everybody. And I think no matter what type of family you come from, this is the human experience that we grapple with, trying to find some sense of who are we beyond our family and our roles. And even with the parents, you know, it's easy to get angry and be like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
you
That's
did a
so
great
greedy.
job.
That's so, but you also see some of the love that was there. You see that the father, right, before he left, he said, I want to get it right with one
At least
child.
one.
I'm so sorry that I got it so wrong.
Yeah.
And you see that nobody's perfect. And while we wish that things were better and it was handled differently, this is the healing process that we
Absolutely.
all have to go through.
Absolutely.
And it seems like you really got that and put that into this film.
Truly.
Thank you so much. I think you're so right. I mean, Angel, she says at one point, you know, that was all she needed, just for him to own up to it. And I thought something that was so beautiful at the end. I was working on the memoriam because it was so important to me, with BJ and Leslie and Aaron for their memories to not be forgotten, you know, and when Angel speaks about grief, you know, and how that's the way that she connects to her family, and my heart just, I get that, you know. And something they said was, if you're gonna, you know, do a memoriam with our siblings, this makes me so emotional, please include our father. And it's like that, you know, that it says so much, you know, about the love that's there and the hope, right? Which is that despite the layers of the dynamics and the pain that we go through in life, that we can move forward with that kind of love. That is incredibly, I think, profound, and says so much, you know, about how we can have hope moving forward and how we're able to break these generational patterns. How Angel can now, as a mother, what she now can pass on to her, you know, daughter, and just at least certainly for myself, you know, having these conversations with my kids and going, okay, you know, I've had a roller coaster of a ride with you guys, but I love you and I'm doing the best I can with the tools that I have. And just owning up to that, I think, is everything.
I know we're going to get into our questions that we ask everyone at the end of an episode, but I feel like I need to ask, because so many people, especially with access to YouTube and social media, many parents are pushing their kids to be child stars today. And everything that we've talked about, from your journey as a kid to we're talking about the Carters, very, like, child stardom and fame at that age can be incredibly hard. What is something you can tell these parents that have a kid that's talented? We have them. We have two kids that will inevitably end up in the spotlight.
1000%.
We said last night, not till they're 18.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you can learn the skills, but not till you're 18 are we putting you there. But for those that do have a 5 and 6 year old where they're like, you're just a superstar ready to go, what is your advice? How do they protect them from this?
It's such a great question, and I really hope people watch this documentary and perhaps it opens their perspective, right?
Yeah.
I think being present is really important. I think, you know, we all have kids, like you said, that are such entertainers. I mean, beyond, right? Like, I mean, I look at my kids and I'm, okay, I know you're going to be on the stage.
Like,
There's
just
no
slow
question
down.
about it, you know? And I always want to empower that, especially when it's their choice. First and foremost has to be their choice. Like, I'm not all about pushing kids that don't want to do it. If they're in love with it and you know they love to perform, encouraging, supporting, and being present, I think, is so important. And not present in an overbearing way, present in the sense that you know what's really going on, so that you can protect your children. So I think that is part of it, but always having a sense of childhood, still, you know, being a kid, still being able to do the things that they love, still having their friend groups, never working so much that they're losing their childhood and their innocence, you know.
Making sure that they're kids first.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts of Punky was we had such an amazing team around us which really was so much about the leadership, where we were pogo sticking all over the lot. We were riding scooters. We were having sleepovers. We were going home. I was going home and riding my roller skates. I didn't feel like I was robbed of my childhood. And it's totally different than someone who is working, goes back to their trailer, and then is working more or practicing for the movie that's coming up and then going back. You know what I mean? So you've got to have that balance, I think. And I think that's made all the difference for me in my life, was really the fact that I felt like I had a real childhood. Yeah. I went to every summer from the time I was like 5 years old, I went to camp. Mm-hmm. And if I ever did want to work in the summer, my mom was like, you're going to camp. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to go have your camp experience. And I really, really love that. When we would go to work in a new city, she always tried to get it into the deal that I could bring a best friend with me. So I had like my best friend from 2 years old who traveled all over with us. It was like part of the deal. And the minute we landed, wherever we landed, she would find out the nearest carnival. And she would take us to the nearest carnival, so that it always felt like a really fun experience.
Mom crushed it.
Mom definitely crushed it. And our house was an extended family. Literally, you can ask Brian, it was the house that everyone came to.
Her mom was a caterer, so
she was a food artist.
Like food as far as you could see. And literally,
That's
open
amazing.
house, there'd be 30, 40, they would just be packed. Everybody swimming in the pool, everybody doing, and it was just full of love.
Yeah.
Constantly.
So much love. So it was like Christmas Eve, everyone was at the house.
Yeah.
Birthdays, everyone was at the house. If it was a Sunday afternoon, everyone was at the house. And so there was really that sense of home. And I think we had a community that could lean on each other. I mean, you know, I always love the story of like Brian, you know, I'd be like, Brian, can you pick me up from school? You know, and he'd be doing his show or whatever, but he also would like take the time to come pick me up, you know, if I, you know, when I was like, I could lean on him and like know that I could reach out. And then I was like the coolest kid at school, because like, are you kidding? Like height of 90210, and he's like coming and giving me a ride to I don't know where.
That sounds like Brian.
Right? It was like the coolest. It was like one of my favorite, coolest moments in my entire life. I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. But we really lean on each other, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So love, connection, playtime, and downtime.
Yes. What about you, having grown up in this wild world with your parents?
I think I missed some of this because I wasn't on screen and as known. So I saw it all, and I saw what Tori went through. But I was a little bit on the periphery, is that I would watch all of it. And then I still was going to school. I still had friends. I remember being on the set of 90210 when they were doing the summer episodes, and my dad really wanted me to act. So he gave me a little bit part, and I had one line at a beach club, and I wore my little outfit, and I hated it. I wore my little outfit, you know, hair parted, and I was like, you want me to go get hungry?
He had the suspenders. I
Wait,
carried him around.
You hated it?
I was 13, and all I wanted to do was go home. It was summertime, and play with my friends. I didn't want to wait in a trailer. I just had no interest in having the success or fame, and the craft of it I didn't get until I was a little bit older. But that doesn't mean that I was unscathed, because I still grew up in Hollywood, grew up in a fast-paced lifestyle, was around it all, and had a lot of stuff that I didn't deal with in childhood. So there's a lot of the documentary when I was watching Aaron, when he was going through really hard times and how sensitive he was. I thought, oh my gosh, I was there. And then that rebellious side, where that anger, like, you can't bring the anger out unless there's some other force. So I saw his anger, and I thought, oh, when I was drinking or drugging, that's when my anger would come out, and I'd punch holes in the wall, and because I couldn't get it out otherwise. I was a people pleaser, and I didn't let myself have that. And I feel very lucky that I was able to make it out of that, because so many don't.
It's so true. And you have, and how did you end? You ended up
see the
so
wheels in
grounded.
Soleil's head, like, next
literally,
documentary. She's like, "Oh, the spellings, it's
how did
coming."
you? Oh, by the way, that's a great idea. Let's do it. How did you end up so grounded in all of it?
I think nature and nurture. I mean, I think my parents did a good job of teaching us foundational things. There was a lot of love there. And then I just came in to the planet different. Same, when you describe, I have that love for people and love for everyone, and I want to heal the world. I mean, I have that. Yeah. So there's a blessing and a curse. The curse is being an exposed nerve for most of your life. It's painful and it hurts, and you feel every shift of the wind. But when you can understand it more and learn more and then know how to harness it, then I think it's a superpower that can work for you, but it can be dicey in the interim.
It's so true. It's so true. It's so true. I said, oh, I feel this incredible responsibility. And the person who I was talking about earlier said, it's not your responsibility because it comes through you. And you have to always remember that right, what we're doing comes through you, because it does become so emotional and it's so easy to take it on. So I have to always remind myself, I'm like, okay, like, let it move through me. Because sometimes I'll feel like after sitting down with someone, I feel like I was in a washing machine. You know, you feel so emotional. And so you just put it so beautifully. And one of the things that I also it made me think of is that, you know, with Aaron, I think it's so important that we also look at, you know, the cyber bullying that was happening, you know, and the things that people were saying. It's devastating. And when your whole life you just want to be loved, really for anyone, especially when you just want to be loved, our kids are going through it. I thought it was such an example of what's happening, you know, online, and you think, my goodness, like if it's happening to this person, it's happening across the board, you know, and I think that's a really important conversation to have as well, because when you're an empath or you're a really sensitive person, or you could be the strongest person in the world, either way, you know, you may have 50 people saying something really nice, and it's like that one person, you know, that like sticks out to you. And so I really hope that through this we get to continue having conversations around how we treat each other.
Well, we're going to continue, because you're going to keep making films.
Yes.
That
and
say
we'll have
this
more
in
to come
different
in.
ways.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Oldish, our tagline now is the art of knowing more and caring less,
I love that.
which is trying to
Love that. Love
fantastic.
it.
So we have a couple questions that are kind
Oh,
of
great. Are
along
these
that
like,
line.
by the way, I feel like I know it was a pretty heavy
Right, so
conversation.
these
are you
are
guys
a little lighter,
you guys
but
okay?
they're still hopefully thought-provoking. And I think for people, they would just get a great insight of you. First one is, what is one thing you used to care deeply about and are now grateful that you no longer do?
What do I not? I mean, really, like there's so many things. There's not just one. I mean, literally, I suppose. I suppose.
what is
Okay. One thing
Excuse me.
is that I think I used to care a lot in my work that I would have approval, you know, around the work that I did by people that I respect, you know, and wanted it to be well received. 1,000% still, it's wonderful when somebody responds and it's well received and they love it. It's such an exquisite feeling. I have to do it first and foremost for me. I got to make myself proud, and I have to feel good about it. Because if you're constantly, again, if we're constantly navigated by what people think, you know, positive or negative, then that shit gets into our heads, and that can sway you. So I have to do it for me first and foremost. And then I really want my kids to be proud of it. And then it goes on from there. But like, I can't make it for that reason of like, oh, I'm going to make this and it's going to be, you know what I mean? You just, you have to do it for yourself.
I love that.
What is a messy human moment that taught you the most?
Oh. Drinking honey in your house.
There you go.
As I was at the height of my spiritual awakening.
And what
are you talking
I'm
about?
going to ask questions when the cameras are up.
What is one thing that you would tell your younger self now that you know more and care less?
Some advice that she needed to hear.
That she's loved. Like really, really, really loved. Yeah. And I think that those feelings of, I've been thinking a lot lately about, you know, what happens in our lives in those defining moments. And it could be anything from, you know, waiting outside of school and being fearful that your parents aren't going to show up, right? And fear of abandonment, or, you know, parents going different ways, and how do you cope with those things. I had a crazy experience, you guys, by the way. This totally led me to, wait, hold on. I'm going to go on another tangent. Anyway, my point is you're loved, you're safe. Yeah, that it's going to be brighter and more exquisite and beautiful than you could have ever imagined. But what I was going to say is the other day I had this crazy experience. I went with my dear friend up to, should I tell this story, or is this, I mean, we can tell it in if you use it or not.
Sure.
But anyway, so one of my dear friends, I was wrapping the dock, and he took me up to Big Sur. It was like amazing. He pulls up in the truck. I'm like so excited. I haven't been to Big Sur since like I was a kid. And essentially I get in the truck and I tell him like off the cuff, I'm like, you know, it's so funny. Like my mom and I like went to Big Sur when I was little, I don't know, with one of her friends, and they put me in the back of the pickup with this dog. And I ended up like doing the whole trip up there, you know, in the back of the truck with this dog. Now, the story that I was raised thinking, you know, was that like I wanted to be in the back of the truck with the dog, which perhaps I did, right? Mm-hmm. We're driving up. We get to the most beautiful view of Big Sur, and I just start weeping because it's so beautiful. But then what happens is that we start doing the turns, and you guys, my palms never sweat. My palms start sweating. I start grabbing the side of the car. I'm like, slow down. Like I literally start to panic.
Like
I start to cry. Attack. I'm flipping out. He's like, oh my God. He's getting like totally nervous. He's like, calm down. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And I realize when we get to the more calm terrain that the little girl in me going up on that windy road, that it was like a sense memory from childhood. And because I think I spend so much time like going back and meditating and working through these things, it became so clear to me that that little girl who wanted to probably be in the back of the picture was really scared. And as we were doing the turns, and here I was in a truck again, and I was like, wow, this is really fascinating, because I could identify it, and then I could go to the beautiful place that I was staying in that night and go tell that little girl, you're safe, you're okay, I love you, I got you, we're good, and move through it. And so I think it's, you know, those stories that we tell ourselves in that moment, you know, they go on for lifetimes. And so I think it's really important for us to take those moments to self-reflect, because those are such a part, you know, of our DNA. And then, you know, that little girl may have not felt safe in certain situations or whatever, but like doing that work, I think that's constant. So I like to constantly tell the little girl that she's safe and loved and gonna be okay. Anyway.
What an episode, guys. I don't even know.
I love you.
You're such an amazing human being.
You're such an amazing human being.
For anybody that hasn't seen The Carters or Kid 90, what are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
Because this woman is only going to continue to make better and better visions of love and kindness. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
guys.
for
This
coming.
was so
Yes,
fun.
thank you for being
I
with
love
us.
you to death. And
Thank you for being
you're
so
amazing.
kind.
We love you. Oh, you're amazing. You make it easy. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to us on this another episode of Oldish. Let us know what you think of it. Please make sure you follow, you like, you subscribe, and you can go and head to our website now where you can sign up for free. Just put in your email address and you'll get all the updates on Oldish. You'll get bonus content and there's a lot of fun stuff over there.
Thank you for watching us.
Yeah, thank you for watching us on YouTube.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I can't wait to watch this and to keep watching and to keep sharing.
Right, you'll have notes.
Bye,
You'll be
everybody.
Like, just give me another week to edit
Never.
I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that you don't have to navigate life alone. If there's something hard that you're dealing with or you're just ready for a change, then reach out to me at randyspelling.com, or you could DM me on Instagram, also at randyspelling. And if I can help you, I will. If there's a resource that I can share with you, I will also do that as well. Thanks.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.